Hello, everybody. Welcome to Technology for Good. We have the good fortune of having Perla Ni with us. Welcome, Perla.
Hi, great to be with you.
And could you tell us what you've done in the past and what you're currently doing in the nonprofit space?
I was a co-founder of Grassroots Enterprise, which was at the time the foremost provider of tools for advocacy for nonprofits. And then I went on to found the Stanford Social Innovation Review, where I served as publisher for 4.5 years. And I left to start Great Nonprofits after Hurricane Katrina to provide a resource for donors and volunteers who are trying to find the best nonprofits to give their time and money to. So I'm currently the CEO of Great Nonprofits, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it is a website that provides reviews and recommendations of nonprofits for people who are looking to volunteer or to give money. We're currently working on trying to get some recommendations of nonprofits that are working in Japan, but we also have recommendations and reviews of nonprofits throughout the country. Over 80,000 reviews have already been written about nonprofits throughout this country. So for those of you who are interested, you can do a search for the area that you live in, your city, or an issue that you're passionate about, and find some really tremendous smaller and local nonprofits that you might not have otherwise heard of. So one way, I shorthand the description of what we do is we're kind of like a Yelp for nonprofits. So if you're used to using consumer reviews and finding local experiences, this is a way to find local nonprofits experiences.
That's great. That is certainly, you are completely technology for good, as is the idea. And actually, I'm going to send, my mother-in-law is looking for a new nonprofit to begin volunteering with in New York, and I'm going to send her to your site.
Absolutely.
So, of all ages, anyone can find anything to do.
That's right. And the people who write these reviews are, first and foremost, they tend to be volunteers, so they can tell you if they had a great volunteering experience, if they had a not so great volunteering experience. I think that would be useful for your mother-in-law, as well as for donors, who are looking to see the impact of their work. We've got a lot of clients who write reviews, so you can see, what does a homeless person say about this organization? What does the pregnant woman say about this organization? So lots of really fantastic, compelling sort of personal stories. They're all very subjective, but they're all, the real authentic voices of people.
No, that's really powerful. I know we talked about my questions, but this is an interesting discussion because social media and the internet, I mean, this is all, it's interesting because you think about just review, a lot of people, product reviews and different things, but you're taking the human desire to share and bringing it into this space, which is really, really powerful. Because your point, feeling impact, it shouldn't just be a brochure or some stats. Right. Really getting personal is it's really powerful.
That's right. I mean, if you look at reviews as something that consumers use across the web, there's Amazon, there's TripAdvisor, there's Zappos. They say that 80% of all consumer shopping sites have reviews, and the reason why they have reviews is because reviews promote transparency. They give the consumer confidence that this is a product I'm willing to buy, and they provide useful information for the consumer who's like, which vacuum cleaner should I buy, this one or this one? Well, here, let's read some reviews with people who are in my similar position. So we think that that same behavior is going to be useful for them as donors. They're going to want to see, what do other donors say? What do other volunteers say? What do other clients say about this organization? And so it's unfiltered. It's not advertising. It's not a slick brochure. It really is in the unedited voice of people who've experienced that nonprofit. So we think this is going to be very helpful to people who are making these kinds of important decisions.
No, I think that's great. Before we go to the next question, that in terms of the sort of the future of online, I don't want to say social journalism, but so like online community, social community. What is where do you think that's headed now?
Well, I think It's about stories, right? I think where we're learning that the most effective ways for social causes to get their message out is through stories. And storytelling has always been really important for nonprofits, except now we have fantastic web tools to allow these stories to be easily published and then easily distributed. So reviews on great nonprofits are not only visible on our site, they're also visible on GuideStar. They're also visible on Charity Navigator. So that we want to make these stories ubiquitous. The other thing that I think is really interesting is how these stories also tie into transparency and accountability. You know, a lot of donors feel frustrated when they feel like, oh, I gave my money to this charity and I've never heard from them since. I don't know what happened with the money that I gave. And so these stories, if you think about them as sort of really, live feedback from people who are experiencing the work of these nonprofits, provide that kind of transparency and accountability. So, hey, if this nonprofit is not providing the blankets that these people need, people will give that feedback. Hey, this organization is great, but we need blankets here, and there's no blankets. If it is an organization that's doing great work, then it's a way for those volunteers that work with the organization or the clients that are served by that organization to give a shout out. Hey, look, this is a great organization that deserves more support. We have some fantastic local organizations, soup kitchens that have fabulous reviews by volunteers, by clients. We've got local animal shelters, local veterans organizations. It kind of just opens a whole world of opportunities to explore really interesting, innovative, and effective nonprofits. It's not necessarily just the organizations that you've heard of, the brand names. There's so much more interesting and compelling organizations that are out there doing really cutting edge work. So I would encourage everyone, especially those people who are young and kind of exploring what to do with their volunteer time or their internship requirements, is look around at the really innovative nonprofits that are out there. They're not just the same old brand names.
No, well said on all fronts. And I have to say, it made me think back to your comment about Japan. Definitely send me the link or area on your site. I'd love to put that up for people to see. Because to your point, it's also, there's so many nonprofits of different sizes and styles and approaches.
Right.
It's really amazing, and it's all out there. But it needs to, people need to, they need to go explore it. Yeah. Don't just say, oh, I've heard of this or I know this. Go. There's so much more to learn.
Yeah, and I would say that some of the smaller nonprofits are very savvy with social media, and so they have very active Twitter feeds, and they've got videos on YouTube, and they've got photos on Flickr that really show the breadth of what they do. And so I know that some of the people who found some of these organizations are like, wow, I'm really impressed. I thought all nonprofits were, of a certain stereotype, and I found, this really innovative, really fast-moving nonprofit that rolls up its sleeves and gets work done. So I think, when you're looking at technologies and thinking about, how do we further push technologies for social good, is to look at some of the smaller nonprofits because they're willing to take some risks and try new tools to engage people.
No, that's great. Well said. Well, so this is a good transition. My next question: what is there a specific nonprofit that you've seen really, or a few of them who've really pushed and used technology in a powerful way for good that you think people should see?
Yeah. I think DC Central Kitchen does a fabulous job. They have a Facebook page which is constantly updated with photos of the homeless people that they are teaching to become self-sufficient through becoming people who can cook, becoming chefs. They have photos, they've got interviews, they've got tons of Flickr photos, they've got a Twitter feed, they've got a separate site for their college campus program, and it has a separate message, separate tone. They really have a great sense of engaging folks. They also use reviews. After a volunteer finishes their stint, they say, hey, look, we want to hear from you, what you thought of the experience, if it was good, if it could be improved, go write a review. Then they show these reviews on their volunteer page, on their donor page, and it really, gives outsiders who are, considering giving to them or volunteering with them. They're like, yeah, oh my gosh, this organization's great. I feel a lot more comfortable and confident about
signing up this Saturday morning to go and volunteer with them. I think DC Central is great. I think there's some fantastic organizations in Pittsburgh that I want to give a shout out to. North Hills Community Outreach, communities and schools in Allegheny County. Really run by fabulous leaders who understand the power of listening to the clients they serve, either listening to kids, listening to the homeless people, and also engaging the community as volunteers and donors, and giving the entire community an opportunity to participate in the whole process. So I think those organizations do really well. They're always, looking for new things to try that could help further their mission. And, a lot of nonprofits can learn from that, it's continuous improvement is what we're all strive for as a sector. We can't just sit back on our laurels.
No, that's great. And to your point, we can't, back to your earlier comment about social media, social media is not just for big organizations or big companies or whatever. I mean, obviously we know it's for right. people, but let's use it, and I love, you're the first person to give local examples, more regional. A lot of people, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but they'll go, oh, Donors Choose, or and Donors Choose is amazing. I don't want but there's these ones that keep popping up in sort of the circles, and there's incredible local work being done. And actually, Amidar from Idealist, I interviewed him earlier this year, and he, similar to you, he's like, the community, there's just all this great stuff that goes sort of unnoticed often. So I'm glad you've given those shout outs, and we'll post online about it. So back to you and maybe your community or your own personal passions. What do you think, if you could create a new technology for good, or a new nonprofit using technology in a really powerful way, beyond what you've done already, what would that be for you today?
The holy grail really is engagement. How do we engage our stakeholders in what we do? And so, part of that engagement is showing them what we do, so that donors feel like their money is being used wisely. They can actually see the effect of their support, so that volunteers can see the clients that benefit from these backpacks, which they stuffed and put together for them, so that clients can see that donors and volunteers care about them enough to support this organization. So, just one crazy idea is I thought, what if I wore a webcam on my head 24 hours a day and just show people, like, this is what we do, this is the people we talk to, this is what the kinds of services that we offer them. My nonprofit, we're an infrastructure organization, so I mainly sit in front of my computer all day. But for many of the direct service organizations, I think that would be really, really, interesting and informative for their community to see, like, here's a day in the life of this organization and all these different people's lives that they touch. So kind of almost, radical feedback and transparency and reporting back to the community. I think that would be really interesting if some organization wants to try that.
I think that's awesome. As a photographer and filmmaker myself too. Actually, yesterday I posted on Dear World. And do you know Dear New Orleans? Are you familiar with Dear New Orleans?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sure the whole idea and concept around it, and what he's been doing with the Evacuator, I'm pronouncing, or evacuator.org, his other nonprofit. I've been really impressed by the use of storytelling. But I love your idea. It should be sort of like, donor, or, a cam for you, like, nonprofit cam, and then even recipient cam, because that's, talk about really point of view. This is what we do. It would be edited, but it would be full. That would change. That could change a lot. I agree. I think visuals and video are going to help shift to the whole, to your point, storytelling and immersing people really in different nonprofits and the work that they do and who they're serving, like you said before.
And that is exactly the point of technology. The point of technology is to actually, I think, enhance our humanness. It's not to, so that we can feel like we're staring at a computer, but it's to feel like, oh, my computer allows me to be closer to someone who's interviewing me from across the country.
Sure.
So if we can kind of create that kind of immersive, great word, a kind of connection between people, philanthropy is at the core, the Greek word is about love of mankind. It is about a human connection, a human compassion, empathy for someone else in their lives. So if we can enhance that through technology, I think, we're all the more better for accomplishing a whole host of our social ideals, whether it be something as fundamental as civil society, right? Yeah. This notion that we get together and we talk to each other and we care about each other's communities, to much more specific goals and projects such as global warming, such as, unemployment and job training, such as animals issues. If we can, use technology so that we can all get a little closer and understand why, these issues are important to us collectively, I think it would get us closer to that goal of coming up with solutions collectively, because social change is it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about us. All of us need to participate in order for any kind of social change to happen.
Well said. I love it. I'm with you. That's great. So last question for you, and then we'll let you go. Speaking of it, is there an organization, a group, or a publication like SSIR, another something that people should definitely be aware of or take a look at, who maybe share the same belief we do?
Yeah, I think Global Giving does a great job of reporting to their stakeholders what they're doing with donations. So right now they're collecting a lot of money for the Japanese tsunami and earthquake victims, and they report back to their donors when the money was released, how much was released, to which organizations, why. They're incredibly transparent. We really enjoy working with them. Other organizations, I love all the StoryCorps organizations. There's a whole, there are some are called StoryCorps, some are variations about them, but what they try to do is make movies about social issues and about nonprofits, and I love those organizations bring those issues to the forefront. I use all the social networking tools, Facebook and Twitter, to keep abreast of what's happening in the nonprofit world.
Yep. No, that's great. Actually, my dad sent me the StoryCorps, a presentation about them 2 days ago. So, and here they appear again. No, that's great. Well, Perla, no, you've been phenomenal. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm sending everyone to visit you in your multiple technology for good. So we'll talk soon.